What's up, guys? On this channel we love to compare old flagships to the latest and greatest, and today we got the Note 20 Ultra versus the 15 Pro Max. I think this is going to be a good video to show people why they should potentially buy an older flagship over spending $1,200 on something like the 15 Pro Max, or even if it's like an S23 Ultra or something just really expensive, $1,000 plus phone. Even phones that are $500, you can find Note 20 Ultra for around $350 to $380. And let's go ahead and see how this stacks up. Alright, so let's kick this off with the display. So the Note 20 Ultra has a 6.9 inch display. It's a dynamic AMOLED display, 120Hz HDR10 plus, 1440p 496 for the PPI, but the 120Hz you can only use at the 1080p resolution. The iPhone has a 6.7 inch display. It's LTPO OLED display, and then it's also 120Hz HDR10. It gets up to 2000 nits peak brightness, and then you have 1290 by 2796 460 for the PPI. So just looking at the displays on both of these phones, they both look really good, and I think the Note 20 Ultra, I think it's even better for viewing content since it has a more boxier TV type of display design on here, and also the punch hole on here is not as intrusive as Apple's Dynamic Island. The bezels still look pretty thin, and colors and everything still look really nice. Like I said, they're both 120Hz as well too, which is really nice. So it just looks really great side by side. And even though the iPhone does have a brighter display, the Note 20 Ultra is still very visible outdoors in direct sunlight. So it's definitely one of those things where just Samsung makes some really good displays. You can see how the displays really have aged really well these years. So like I was saying earlier, when you start watching content, you really see the difference here. When you're watching content, the Note 20 Ultra just looks like a like a little mini TV. So that's something that really cool. And then you can see the punch hole on the Note 20 Ultra is just a little bit less intrusive when looking at content, so you get a more immersive experience. And you also have a slight curve to the Note 20 Ultra. A lot of people like the flat displays, which the iPhone does have, but hopefully that translates what I was trying to say. There's some pretty cool things going on hardware wise with the Note 20 Ultra, and it's retaining its value pretty well, because most Android phones usually drop in value a lot, but this phone is retaining its value simply because it's one of the last Samsung flagship phones that's getting security patch updates that also has SD card support. So that's a big thing. This phone does have expandable storage, which the iPhone does not, and that's a feature that they pretty much taken away to essentially, and all of phone companies are doing it, but essentially to sell you up on more gigabytes. It's just another way to make more money. You also have an S Pen on here as well too, which is very cool. I use this to just jot down notes and stuff like that. You can also use this for digital artwork. I also think it's pretty good for content creators as well, since it is Bluetooth. You can take pictures from a distance here and just press the button on here, and then it just snaps a photo. Same thing for video, so I think it's pretty cool for that as well too. It's glass and metal, it's IP68 dust and water resistant, so it still looks pretty good. And like I said, there's a lot to like about the hardware on the Note, especially the SD card support. Now the iPhone is also IP68 dust and water resistant. It's got the titanium design, which is really just a fancy word, but it does, what's cool about this is that it does make the phone a lot lighter for such a big phone like this. But from what we're seeing with the sort of like drop testing, durability test, is that it's not really holding up too well. So definitely I put this phone in the case immediately after I saw that. But got USB Type-C now this year as well too, and yeah, so obviously no SD card support and stuff like that, but yeah, that's pretty much the big hardware difference here. Alright, so let's talk about these specs a little bit more, because I think this surprises a lot of people. So the Note 20 Ultra, it has Android 13, and it has the Snapdragon 865 chip on it. Micro SD card support, 128 gigs of internal storage and 12 gigs of RAM. The iPhone has the iOS 17, Apple A17 chip, 256 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM. So you can see it's a pretty big, difference when it comes to the multi-core and single core, as you guys can see. But For the average person, and even for people who play games, you actually be surprised at the Note 20 Ultra here. So I'm just gonna exit out of these applications. When it comes to general speed, the Note is still pretty fast. As you can see, even like animation wise and stuff, you really won't notice too much of a difference. It surprised a lot of people because they think they're getting a much faster phone, regardless of whether you came from like an iPhone 11 or 12 or whatever. It doesn't matter. Most older flagships are really fast, and you know they're supposed to be fast for years and years. So you can see the Note 20 Ultra is pretty much on par. There's a small difference, or probably a more noticeable difference sometimes with opening games, but as you can see there, it really wasn't that big of a difference. So as far as speed, it's not like you're getting a much faster phone. We saw the scores there; they were a pretty significant difference there, but as we saw, it wasn't really translating. And both phones have 120 hertz, so it just pretty much feels the same. It still feels very fast. All right, so I was mentioning gaming, and like I said, this surprised a lot of people, but you can still play PUBG on the Note HDR Extreme and also smooth 90 frames. And it's super smooth. So gaming performance on here is really good still. It surprises people. This is why I always recommend people on a budget, because what they'll do is they'll get like something like a Galaxy A34 or you know, just a mid-ranger or a budget phone, and you won't get anywhere near, you know, close to 90 frames like on those phones. The iPhone, like, you know, like you would expect, it's gonna have excellent performance when it comes to gaming. This one is not compatible with 90 frames yet. It will be, but the performance on here is great too. But just, you know, I just wanted to make that comparison. Yeah, so gaming is still really good on these older flagships. It surprises, like I said, it surprises a lot of people. All right, let's check out the speakers side by side. We're at max volume. Really good sounding speakers on both of these actually. iPhone definitely a little bit louder. There's a really good sound profile on the Note, just really crisp mids and highs. Just excellent sound. Yes, the iPhone is definitely a little bit louder, and the bass is definitely a little bit fuller. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about one thing that I really like about the Note is the option to do face unlock and also the in-display fingerprint sensor. With the iPhone, you do have, you know, a more secure face unlock with the Face ID. But I do like having those two options here. And also the iPhone does have this action button, which you pretty much have on Android. You can just basically turn the power button into an action button if you want. It opens the camera. You can actually do quite a bit with the button. You can do a triple press. So there's a lot. So the action button is pretty cool, but you can pretty much do the same thing, if not better, on, you know, Android. So this is the area when it comes to cameras where a lot of these companies are putting in a lot of work, and they are pretty much, the cameras every year are like the big selling point with these phones. So I'm going to show you guys side-by-side stills. Let's go over the specs. The Note 20 Ultra has a 108 megapixel standard lens, 12 megapixel periscope telephoto. It also has 5 times optical, 50 times hybrid, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and it shoots in 8K 24. You also have a 10 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K 60. The iPhone has a 48 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel periscope telephoto, also 5 times optical, 12 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 4K 60, and then a 12 megapixel selfie that also shoots in 4K 60. Check out these side-by-side stills and the video. All right, so here is an area where I have to give the newer phones their props. Even if the Note 20 Ultra had a brand new battery in it, it still wouldn't get the battery life that these newer flagships are getting, like the 15 Pro Max and the S23 Ultra. The battery life is absolutely phenomenal on the newer phones. Yeah, these phones just last like, you know, a day and a half easy. The Note, I did a drain test this year if you guys want to check it out. Around 6 hours of screen on time. So basically on a heavy day, you can get about 6 hours of screen on time. And yeah, this is about a full day's use, but it just does not come in comparison. And this is largely due to just better optimization with these chips and stuff like that. And also just, you know, putting bigger batteries in the phones. So the Note has a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, 25 watt charging, wireless and reverse wireless charging, which is something the iPhone lacks. It does lack reverse wireless. And the iPhone has a 4,441 milliamp hour battery. You do have what's really cool, the MagSafe charging on the iPhones, which is nice. You can put accessories on your phone and stuff like that. You also have the wireless and reverse wired charging. But yeah, battery life is probably like the biggest thing. You know, it's just much, much better. So what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.